Welcome back. Are Buy American policies doing more harm than good for U.S. workers?
That is the question at the center of the latest Intelligence Squared debate. That takes place here in New York this evening. And Bloomberg is the television partner for the debate. Peter Cook joins us now with a preview. Peter?
Well, Lori Mark, thanks very much. The idea behind the Intelligence Squared debate series is to put forward a controversial idea and let some smart people on both sides of the issue try and sway a live audience. It happens tonight on the NYU campus, but we're getting a jump start by talking with two of the debaters ourselves. Joining me now are Ambassador Susan Schwab, who served as President Bush's trade representative. She's currently a professor of public policy at the University of Maryland. She agrees that Buy American and Hire American policies will backfire. And on the other side of the issue, Leo Gerald, International President of the United Steelworkers. Welcome to both of you. Thank you both for being here very much. And we're getting a little sneak peek what's going to play out this evening. Ambassador Schwab, I'm going to start with you. Make the case Buy American, Hire American policies will backfire. Tell me why.
Well, we will, obviously, I'm not going to reveal all of my arguments that I plan to use this evening, but we'll be looking at historical evidence, whether you look at history, current, or U.S., foreign countries. There is no evidence that binational policies have ever helped a country get to economic success and stay there. And we'll be looking at that evidence. Really, like all other trade protectionism, you can help a small, narrow segment of your population, but at the cost of the vast majority of your workers and businesses.
Leo Gerald, you heard the basic premise that you're going to be hearing this evening in this debate. What's your counter-argument?
I'm going to spend a bit of time convincing the ambassador that she's totally wrong, and that the fact of the matter is that we've had Buy America policy since the 1930s, and they work. And in fact, 20% of the American economy is spent public expenditure, and we shouldn't be using taxpayer dollars, to be very blunt, to buy products that are going to create jobs in other countries. And since we've, over the last 15 years or so, since we really threw ourselves into these sort of open market concepts, America's accumulated a $6.5 trillion trade debt over those last 15 years, and it can't be sustained. So Buy America policy doesn't solve all of the problems, but at least puts taxpayer dollars to work creating jobs in this country.
Why is it not, Ambassador Schwab, in America's interest to keep American workers working in American factories as opposed to having some workers in another country make the same product?
It is definitely in our interest having American workers working in the United States, working in factories. There's no question. But binational policies, isolationist economic policies, don't actually get you that outcome. There's a study, for example, by the Peterson Institute that the Buy American language in the stimulus package maybe created 9,000 jobs in the United States and probably cost 65,000 jobs in the United States. The fact of the matter is most of the world's population and the world's buyers are outside our market. 95% of the world's population are out there. And I don't think anyone thinks that we're going to be able to spend enough money, Americans, at home to pull ourselves out of this recession without taking advantage of export markets. And you don't get access to export markets if you slam the doors shut here.
Look at this. This is textbook stuff that doesn't exist in reality. The fact we've been running a record-breaking trade deficit with the rest of the world for 25 years plus, every year setting a new record over top the old record. And as a result of that, we've converted ourselves from the world's greatest creditor nation to the world's greatest debtor nation, more than is ever seen any time in the history of this whole planet. And that's because of the kind of policies that the ambassador is advocating. And the fact of the matter is that trade is good. We're not anti-trade. But don't tell me that when China says that it's going to sell solar panels in America lower than the cost of production, their comments from the government, that we should say, well, that's okay. We have a $45 billion trade deficit in autos and auto parts with just two countries, South Korea and Japan. No one's going to tell me that's because the GM or the Ford car is not good. The reason we can't get that trade deficit down with them is they won't let us in their market.
How about that argument? And again, the argument we've heard consistently is that Buy America, all we're doing is doing the same thing China's doing. They had a stimulus package with a Buy China provision.
It sounds very patriotic to talk about Buy American, and I like to buy American whenever I can as a consumer, and I want to buy quality, and I want the best possible price, and I want my taxpayer dollar being spent exactly the same way. I'm not going to defend China when it comes to subsidized product or dump product, but there are statutes that we can use, that we use very effectively to address those problems. When I was U.S. Trade Representative, we filed 6 cases against the Chinese. We've won or settled all of the cases that have come through the pipeline thus far. That's how you resolve problems. You don't lead by example by shutting your market and hoping everyone else follows. And one point about the trade deficit. Trade deficits dropped by half, Leo, since we went into this recession. Clearly, reducing the trade deficit this way is not the way one wants to reduce the trade deficit.
You know, we dropped everything by more than half. The point that the ambassador just made is, again, I look forward to the challenge of the debate on the 421 case.
Well, I'm going to get you to hold that thought right there, because we're going to actually hit a break really quick and come back with Leo Gerald, Ambassador Susan Schwab. After this break, continue our debate on Buy America, Hire American, policies that backfire or not. We'll hear some more. I'm Peter Cook in New York. We continue our debate now between former U.S. Trade Representative Susan Schwab, United Steelworkers President Leo Gerald. The two are among the panelists tonight in the latest Intelligence Squared debate here in New York. The proposition for discussion: Buy American, Hire American policies will backfire. They're honing their messages with us here on Bloomberg First, and Susan Schwab supports that proposition. Leo Gerald opposes that proposition. Let's cut to what's in the headlines right now. This issue with the Chinese tires, the tariffs being imposed by the Obama administration at the request of the steelworkers. How confident are you that that kind of trade action isn't going to boomerang and hurt the United States, hurt the very same workers you represent?
Let me go back to the point that the ambassador was making. This is not the first 421 case that's been brought, and if I back up a little further, the ambassador said she doesn't intend to defend China's behaviors of subsidizing and dumping and whatnot. Well, there's a provision called Section 421 of the Trade Act that is, if China surges and sells below market price, undercuts our price, disrupts our markets, we can bring an action against China. We brought 4 during the Bush administration that we succeeded on. President Bush dismissed them all. We lost thousands of jobs in the pipe and tube industry, in the iron ductile industry, in the wire hanger industry, and this case now under Section 421 on tires is simply us saying to the Chinese, these are the rules you agreed to. I view the International Trade Commission as sort of the Supreme Court of Trade in America. We went to the Supreme Court of Trade, we made our case, and based on the facts, the court says they were wrong. And all I see is President Obama's enforced the law. This is not a big deal. Either we're going to have a rules-based trading system or we won't, and we enforce the rules.
Do you agree with the action that was taken on behalf of on the Chinese tire issue?
Well, let me say this. I have not read all the briefs, so I don't know how I would have, what kind of recommendation I would have made to President Bush had I seen the briefs. I can tell you the 4 previous cases, when you get to the part in the statute where you're supposed to look at the national economic interest versus the interests of the group that is petitioning, it was very clear the other 4 cases were not in the national economic interest. I think it is clear, regardless of the merits for the steelworkers at particular tire plants, that this was a political decision rather than an economic decision. The entire U.S. Tire industry, no one was there supporting it. Just the steelworkers, the tire.
Right.
Let me finish.
Ambassador, you're not right,
tire industry,
right.
The tire industry did not support it. The auto industry, GM, Ford, Chrysler, were supposed to be helping the U.S. auto industry. They opposed this case.
No.
And if you look at the tires that we're talking about, those jobs, by putting up a 35% tariff against China, those jobs are not likely to come back. What's going to happen is we'll be importing those tires from somebody else. Let me just finish this thought. Consumers who need to change the tires on their cars at this point, who can't afford to because now they're 35% or 50% higher, those are safety issues, too.
Listen,
I'll give you a chance.
The ambassador has been reading the Wall Street Journal. That's where she must have got that information. I'll try to go point by point in reverse. The International Trade Commission said if their 55% tariff was put in, tires would have gone up by $3 a tire, possibly. That's not the tariff that
They chose 35%.
35, so that's going to be less than $3 a tire. That's a silly argument to make. The fact of the matter is we could have never presented the case unless we'd have got the data that we needed from the tire industry. There's one company that opposed it, Cooper Tire. And the reason Cooper Tire opposed it, and think about this happening in America, the woman who is responsible for the Chinese tire and rubber industry testified at the hearing that was put on by the trade ambassador. And what she testified is that when they attract foreign capital to their country, they like them to sign an export license where they'll export 100% of their production for the first 5 years. That's a violation of WTO. She testified to that right in the government building. And so their lawyer, who's a former President Bush official, intervened and said, no, she's not right. She lost something in translation. It's only 80%. I mean, that's craziness. The fact of the matter is we're going to save jobs in America, and the cases that the ambassador said were not in the national interest, after President Bush dismissed those cases, we lost the whole wire industry. We lost 3 companies in the iron ductile pipe, and in the pipe and tube case, we lost another 5,000 jobs, and it's barely hanging on. If we wanted to build a pipeline from Alaska to Chicago, we couldn't do it without Chinese pipe.
We got a minute left. I'll give you a final thought.
Here's the real question about the tire case, which is the tire case is not going to help any tire workers, but is it a stalking horse
it's for a whole
lot of steel cases?
No, it's
the jobs it's going to save are elite union leader jobs.
They're not elite union leader jobs. I won't buy that. We're going to save jobs in Union City, Tennessee. We lost the plant that was selling low-end tires to the Chinese in Tyler, Texas. The Tyler Economic Development Commission did a study about how much of that cost the Tyler region, $875 million to close that plant in Tyler, Texas.
The only jobs that will be affected by this action are the jobs of American manufacturers and workers who will not be able to export because other countries do the same thing to us.
No, that's not true. You know that.
Do you see rising protectionism as a real threat right now to the global recovery?
It is something I worry about. I do see it as a threat. I see it as us shooting ourselves in the foot and asking other countries to do the same.
All right, Susan Schwab, she got the last word in this debate. Not sure if she will tonight. Hopefully you both will get your words in tonight. And again, if you need more convincing one way or the other on these issues, tune in Wednesday night at 9 p.m. here on Bloomberg for the latest Intelligence Squared debate. See Susan Schwab, Leo Gerald, and others debate this issue.